Okay, so this problem is getting a little more difficult. So first we need to get the parentheses by themselves. So we would need to divide by 7. So that's going to give us x minus 3 squared equals 5. And then now we have the parentheses all by themselves. So the next step would be to square root. The square root of 5 is not perfect. So I would leave that as the square root of 5. So now we're going to have x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 5 because I don't want to go ahead and make it a decimal yet. So what I need to do is try to get x by itself. So add 3 to both sides. So x equals plus or minus square root of 5 plus 3. So what we're going to do is kind of branch off and calculate both parts. So positive square root of 5 plus 3, and then negative square root of 5 plus 3. So we would have two different answers. We would have x equals 5.24, and then we would have x equals 0.76. Okay, so we're going to go through and do the same process here. Divide by 2. So 10 equals m plus 5 squared. Then I need to square root. So we don't know, that's not a perfect square. So I'm going to leave it square root of 10. So plus or minus square root of 10 equals m plus 5. Next, I would have to subtract 5. So I'm going to have plus or minus square root of 10 minus 5 equals m. So I'm going to branch off and do positive square root of 10 minus 5 equals m, and negative square root of 10 minus 5 equals m. So I'm going to get two different answers. M equals negative 1.84 and m equals negative 8.16. All right, for the next problem, we start out the same method. Divide by 3, and I get 7 equals z plus 14 squared. Then I square root. So plus or minus square root of 7 equals z plus 14. Then I would subtract 14. So I get plus or minus square root of 7 minus 14 equals z. And then I have two different equations now. So positive square root of 7 minus 14 equals z. Negative square root of 7 minus 14 equals z. And then that would end up equaling negative 11.35 and negative 16.65. Okay, the next one looks a little bit different. So what you want to try to do, your goal is to get the x squareds on one side and then the numbers on the other side. So what I'm going to start out doing is adding 2x squared. So that's going to give me 5x squared minus 35 equals 45. And then I want to get this 35 over to the other side. So I would have 5x squared equals 80. And then I would divide by 5, and I would get x squared equals 16, square root, x equals plus or minus 4. Okay, so for the next problem, what we need to do first is distribute. So notice that I can't really divide the left side by 5, but I could go through and distribute this. So I would have 11x squared plus 3 equals 20, x squared minus 15. And then after I distribute it, I'm going to try to get x squareds on one side, numbers on the other. So I would have 3 equals 9, x squared minus 15, add 15. And I would get 18 equals 9x squared, divide by 9. X squared equals 2, square root, and I would get x equals plus or minus 1.41. Okay, the last one, I'm not going to start with distributing. Instead, I'm going to try to, I'm going to move that 20 over first. So I'm going to have 11